Let's talk about the rest of the Detroit Pistons. Cade Cunningham, Jaden, Jalen, Isaiah, Ronnie, and of course, all of your info on the big fella, Tolu Smith III. Michael Bolton?
Thanks, Josh. It's Michael Bolton here, and it's time for another episode of the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Let's get to it.
Let's get to it, indeed.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NBA fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball Podcast, brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I'll be in the hospital bar. I'm also the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create the account, and use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Thank you also for making Locked On Fantasy Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and we're available on all platforms, all of them: YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Google, Amazon TV. There's so many things. You can find us, subscribe and follow and comment and like and share. I did actually finally put the landing page for the live draft show, Wednesday, June 25, 8 p.m. Eastern. That is Thursday, 26th of June over here, Australian, 10 a.m. We're going live. It'll be linked in the YouTube description and you'll see it plastered all over the YouTube page. It'll be pinned there. Live show. Me talking about the picks, not someone talking about grit, hustle, and stuff they don't know about when they try and compare them to players that they are nothing like. We'll be here actually talking about stuff that matters from a real-life fantasy and dynasty point of view. We are here, though, to talk about the Detroit Pistons. We talked about half of them yesterday. It is World Jaguar Day here, not to be confused with World Cougar Day, which is celebrated every day in my house. We're here to talk about the rest of the Pistons, the under 25 portion of that team. So, let's start with the big fella. Who's not the big fella, but he's the big fella in terms of leading this team. It is Cade Cunningham. What could Cade possibly be short for? Cadeford? Yeah, there you go. Cadeford Cunningham. Now, this, going through and talking about Cade here, who was the 8th ranked player in Yahoo Points Leagues, 11th in category leagues. He played 35 minutes with 33 usage. He's 24 years of age. He averaged 26, 6, and 9 with a steal. Shot 47, 85, and 36. These are all excellent numbers. And it got me thinking, because as you would know, I have been big on Cade for quite a while. I have been big on Cade from a fantasy point of view, and often the straight 9-cat numbers on him and the rankings have made it seem like I didn't know what I was talking about. Cade's actually the 90th ranked player. Oh, why would you take him in round 3? All right, you would have heard that stuff. And it's true that I would have Cade at the end of round 2, start of round 3, and he'd finish like 45th or whatever it was. And I was a little bit off. But the talent was there. And I think I wrote an article in this Basketball Monster before the 23-24 season, highlighting someone like Cade Cunningham and saying, if he just does like 5 to 10% improvements in some of his categories, which isn't very much, that takes him to be the 10th ranked player. And all that stuff was very easy to allow to happen. And that's literally what happened. That brings me to a larger point, which I'm not going to talk too much about Cade, who almost certainly will be a first-round player next season. I've got no real question about that, whether he gets, in terms of where I value him. Now, whether he gets drafted there or not, I've got no idea. But I expect that that's where he'll be, because if you look at his 9-cat total ranking on Yahoo, it's 29th, and he played 70 games, so still the game has not caught up to his value, or the ranking has not caught up to his value, because people are going to say turnovers. Who cares? Right? Who cares? Anyway, top 10 fantasy points guy too. It brings me to a larger point, which I just want to expand upon here, because I've been thinking about it. And you will hear people talking either in the fantasy analyst space in any sport, not singling anybody out, of course. Of course, apart from the assholes, and they know who they are. No, the fantasy analysts, fantasy players, fantasy managers, fantasy commenters, fantasy Redditors, fantasy whoever, right? And often, and I will do this at times as well, right? Probably less than others, but whatever, you might disagree. Where we often will say, I want to see him do it first, and then I'll buy in. We talk about it with performance. We talk about it with health. Oh, no, I can't. I need to see him play 70 games, and then I'll buy in. Yep. That's a common thread, and I think you will say that in your head. Oh, okay, yep. The thing with that is, right, and this happened, I don't know how to phrase this. This happens to me a bit, is that I will often be on a player, and it's too early, by a year. And then in a year's time, you see what I envisaged happening. I like to go early on things. I like to project rather than react, because if now, like we look at Cade and someone says, well, now I saw it, now I saw the numbers, now he's a first round player, now I take him in round 1, there is no value. The value isn't there. Not to say he's a bad pick, but if you take someone at 12 and they finish at 12, you've just hit the nail on the head. If you take someone at 40 because you envisage a jump and they finish at 12, W. You take someone at 120 looking at you, Dyson Daniels, and they finish, however you want to rank them, 50th, 10th, whatever, W. But if you go in and say, well, I saw Dyson do it now I'll take him at pick 30, and I've got to have him because he was great last year, and you take him at 30 and he finishes at 30, what have you done? Nothing. Like, it's just, you're spot on there. So I think that there is, and this approach is risky. I did it with Jordan Poole. I was like, okay, I think he's going to be able to do a lot here in Washington, and it didn't work in year 1. And then in year 2, he was just basically right on, and I got it wrong, right? But I think that this approach, it does lead to errors, but it also leads to wins, because if you wait for something to happen, if you wait, oh, now I've seen him be healthy for 2 years, so now I'm on board, or now he's broken out, now I'm on board, it's really hard to get any sort of delta in terms of draft position versus end position. And if you're just drafting everyone, my guy in round 1 finished round 1, my guy in round 2 finished round 2, it's a great way to finish 5th. It's a great way to finish 4th, unless a bunch of things go your way. And the idea of this brought me to Cade, because now there's going to be everybody who is in on Cade as a first or second round player and drafting him there. And the value is absolutely no problem with him being there. He's great. I love Cade. He should be picked in this area. But waiting for it to happen, whether it's Cade or anybody, waiting for it to happen before you commit to that evaluation of a player means that your ability to grab value on guys is limited. I just want you to chew on that idea for a bit and see how it sits with you. You'll notice that like Cade's passing volume and offensive load and time on ball and all that stuff is through the roof. His deltas in advanced metrics are through the roof. He was awesome. And I don't really see what's changing here. Like, if anything, maybe he has a 37% shooting season from 3. Maybe he goes from 1 steal to 1.3. The thing that could drop, I guess, is 0.8 blocks. Maybe that's 0.6. But he's relatively safe, I would think. Let's talk about the passport legend, Jalen Duren, who I was somewhat concerned about heading into this season. Injury is one thing, not that worried about it. My concern was they were moving Isaiah Stewart to a full-time backup center role, and they love Isaiah Stewart, less so now with the new regime versus the old one, but that would cap Duren's minutes upside. And I think that was absolutely bang on in terms of how that assessment worked. What Duren did, now he stunk to begin the season. He was actually terrible, and Stewart was outperforming him. Second half of the season, and you notice it, and this isn't an exact lineup of when the value changed, but pre-trade deadline 101st, post 62nd. I think the switch happened sometime in January for Duren, but he still only played 26 minutes a night. I think he's more of a 28-minute-a-night player, but in getting to 32 minutes a night, I don't think has any shot of happening with the way this team is currently constructed. You'll notice again, his advanced stats, big improvements. He still isn't blocking enough shots or contesting enough shots. He's a rebound guy with great field goals. And realistically, we're talking about him being 62nd. What was he overall? 94th for the season? 83rd in points leagues with 16 usage in 25 minutes. What happens if we push those minutes up to 29, let's say? Okay, so rebounds are strong at 10. That's great. His passing numbers, not bad. Not bad. Maybe he gets to 3 assists. But the blocks are bad. They've been bad for multiple years. Defensively, he's not very good. The field goals are great, but he's not hitting threes. He's not a scorer. He's not a usage player. What can we peak out at, let's say 28? Let's say Isaiah Stewart even missed a bunch of time and he has to play 31 minutes. 15 and 12, 3.5 assists, 1.4 blocks. It's pretty good numbers. Jakob Poeltl territory. 50th, 60th maybe. So, and he's still young, obviously. He's 21. And you do think that things will improve, but as we know, rim contesting, shot blocking tends to decrease with age, not go up. And that's probably the thing we need to go up for Duren to be better. because I don't think he's ever going to be a shooter or a usage guy or doing anything that's really much more than finishing, lob finishing, pick and roll finishing. Don't think he's developing a mid-range. I don't think he's developing a floater game. So while it was encouraging, in the second half of the season he was much better, in large part due to elite field goals and high rebounds, I'm not really sure what else is coming. That said, I think we can expect more than 25 minutes because I would hope that he doesn't have that terrible start to the season that he had last season. I would hope that he's better than that. But it can be easy to look. Third season, age 21, incredibly strong second half of the season, and it's easy to look at that and go, well, I think more is coming. But as I always try to do when I project things, is I look at, okay, but what? What is improving? And is it as simple as 3 more minutes? And that might mean that he is the 60th best player. I get that. I think that makes sense. But there are so many black holes in this overall game that there are some worries about it. And I won't say it's a guarantee that he becomes a perennial top 50 sort of a player. I don't think that's a guarantee at all. We've got Jaden Ivey to come back and talk about, who's a little bit tough to talk about, but we're going to talk about him. And other of the rest of the young players on the Pistons. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by Wayfair. There's nothing like stepping into your own outdoor space and feeling like you've escaped to a personal oasis. You might want to update your patio this season, but Wayfair, that just makes it so much easier to turn that space into an area that feels like yours. Comfortable, stylish, and ready for summer. Wayfair has everything that you need to level up your outdoor space. Conversation sets, outdoor bars, fire pits, hot tubs, gazebos, and yes, even perfect string lights. I'm not sure why that's the capper on that sentence, but perfect string lights to set the vibe. So whatever your style is, Wayfair can have it. Whatever your budget is, Wayfair will cater to you. So don't wait. Make your outdoor space your dream oasis today with Wayfair and enjoy it all summer long. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop a huge outdoor selection. That is Wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style and every home. We're talking Pistons. We've done Cade, Jalen Duren, and the old farts in the previous show. Now, we're going to move on to a guy who, I don't know, is a tough one to talk about. I was relatively high on Jaden Ivey in the draft. I thought that he should have gone one pick earlier to Sacramento, and he struggled earlier on. But he is still relatively young. He's still 23. And he's also one of these guys where it's important to be able to hold multiple positions at once. I'd been higher on Ivey than others. And then he had an outrageous preseason. And then I had to settle down, let's push back on this because the stuff that he's doing in preseason has zero shot of holding. And it didn't hold. But he was much better than he'd been in the past. So it's always about finding that right balance. Ivey ended up as 114th ranked player overall. He finished with 29 fantasy points a game, despite playing only 30 minutes a night and coming off the bench. He averaged 17.5 points with 4 rebounds and 4 assists. And the 4 assists is really key there because obviously, if he's playing 30 minutes and Cade's playing 35, he's not only on the court when Cade's not there. You'll notice that Darko looks at his delta and says, you're one of the biggest improvers in the NBA, and I agree with that, 94th percentile. He had 87th percentile in creation volume and 85th percentile on ball. All that's true. He also shot 41% from 3, so I'm just going to give you a quick, hey, hold up on that. Because that's awesome. It's awesome. I think it's fake. So while I'm interested in what Ivey did, his 26 usage, the 17.5 points with 4 assists is good. He still only hit 73% from the line. He improved a lot, and a lot of this was based on 41% shooting. And if that's 36% shooting, we're not having this discussion. He is more of a fringe guy than a rosterable 12-team league player. Now, they, as we know from the last show, Schroeder, Beasley, Hardaway, all free agents. What if they decide that Ivey and Cade are the guys to be the backcourt and start? Or what if they decide that they're trading for Kevin Durant and Ivey is sent off to Phoenix to play alongside Devin Booker? Then we're very much more in on Jaden Ivey because Ivey would work with Booker and he would be more in a point guard role and he would take on some of Durant's usage. So there are a lot of ways that this can go. So while it was very encouraging to see Jaden Ivey step up the way he did and really disappointing to see that broken leg, I do think that the broken leg may have, and this happens often, it may have cut the season at a certain point so that we didn't see the 3-point regression. Because if he had played more than 30 games and played 75, we might be sitting here with a 36% 3-point shooting Jaden Ivey who post-trade deadline shot 32% from 3 and was the 190th ranked player. And we go, ugh, shit again. So while I was encouraged, while it was nice, and while there is clearly minutes upside and even some ball handling upside, just don't look at those 30 games of 41% shooting, suggesting that's the be-all and end-all, and that's who he is. He's figured it out. He can shoot. Because give him 30 more games and he hits 30%, and we're singing a completely different song. So I'm not going to be swayed entirely off of just 30 games. Investigate that in Dynasty, whether you've got him, whether someone else believes or doesn't believe. What is peak Jaden Ivey? Top 70, I think. And it probably isn't on this team. But that is probably where he goes. Peak is top 70 in 2 to 3 years' time. It's going to require the shooting to stick. It's going to require a little bit more in passing. And it's going to require just a 20% improvement, 30% improvement in steals. Possible? Yeah, we know steals jump a lot. So yeah, but just my main point on that was it was good. It was encouraging. But don't overreact to it. Let's talk Ausar Thompson, who, again, I will be very clear on this. He is not a Amen Thompson. Yes, they share identical genetics, but there is a reason why Amen was considered the slightly better prospect coming in, because they are slightly different players. Now, it is also easy to write off this season for Ausar Thompson due to the blood clots that he suffered back in March of 24, I think it was, and then he didn't start the season on time, and he was on limits during the season. He ended up playing 23 minutes a night only. He was still the 128th ranked player. So while he's not Amen Thompson, he still got an incredibly useful fantasy game. And post-trade deadline, he was 100th. And having Jaden Ivey out did help. He showed improvements across his advanced stats. His passing volume at 73rd percentile is a little surprising, given he's not a huge assist guy, but 2.3 assists is okay. We know that absolutely elite defensive stuff, 0.7 blocks and 1.7 steals. There's no reason that Ausar Thompson can't be a 2-and-1 guy. 2 steals, 1 block. He only played 23 minutes, and this is what he did. 10 points, 5 rebounds. Of course, the shooting's still a terrible, terrible scenario. 22 from 3, 64 from the line. They're bad. He's 22. I will, again, reiterate this point that I made a million times during the season, and you can debate it as much as you want. I know there'll be Pistons fans who debate this or others who debate this. JB Bickerstaff lied to us time and time again. And that's okay. It's his job as a coach to lie or protect his players or do whatever. I've got no problem with that. It's my job, sort of, to decipher lies and explain them to you. Because he would come out, Ausar Thompson would play 23 minutes, and he would say, he's on a minutes limit. Okay. Conveniently, every game that Tobias Harris missed, Ausar Thompson would play 30 minutes. And then he'd say, yep, we're easing off the minutes limit. Tobias Harris would come back. Ausar would play 23 minutes, and he'd go, yeah, he's still got the minutes limits. Conveniently, Tobias Harris would miss. Ausar would play 30. So, what happened? Well, very clear. He didn't want to play him 30 minutes unless Tobias Harris was out. And that's okay. But don't buy into the fact that the limited minutes for Ausar Thompson were solely due to minutes restrictions, because it was bullshit. You don't have a minutes limit that's conditional on which other players are playing. That's not how health-related minutes restrictions occur. Yeah, we're really worried about your blood clots and your injuries, but do you mind risking death just because Tobias Harris is out? Should be alright, yeah? Just a couple of games. And if you die, you die. We'll wear the cost. You got insurance, surely. Oh, you don't? Whatever. But next game, fully health restricted. I'm not telling you that he's a 23-minute a night player. I'm telling you that the reason that he didn't play 30 minutes a night down the stretch was not health-related. No matter what JB wants to tell you, it was not health-related. I think that we are going to see more from Ausar next season, and he will be a draftable player. I don't think we should expect 35 minutes like we got from Amen Thompson in year 2, but we should be looking that post-trade deadline top 100 number is relatively obvious. But of course, when you're grabbing a guy like Ausar Thompson, you have to understand all of the restrictions. You have to understand you're not getting threes. You have to understand you're going to have terrible free throws. You'll have good field goals, low scoring, but steals, blocks, rebounds, assists, that's what you bring. We know this, and it's got to fit in the right spot. Still love Ausar Thompson, still love the pick of him there, but you've got to have the right players around him. And the right players are a bunch of elite shooters, Malik Beasley, and what else they're going to do. And he is a tough fit. And him and Jalen Duren, not the greatest fit. We'll see how that all plays out. Let's talk about Stewart, who the Pistons made some of their best decision-making this last offseason by deciding they weren't catering their team to Isaiah Stewart. And I know someone will tell you that they weren't catering their team to Isaiah Stewart. I would say that they're wrong. Because they prioritized not spacing around Cade Cunningham. They prioritized making sure Isaiah Stewart was a starter by moving him into a position that he didn't fit by playing him at power forward and putting other guys around him because he was heart and soul. Now, he is obviously a little loose when it comes to behavior on the court. He was suspended again this season. He received multiple ejections. And honestly, at times he's just a clown. But I thought, moving back to the role, backup center, which is the role that I've been saying for years that he should be playing, he actually turned in his best season, I thought. Now, the advanced metrics do not like it at all. They saw big declines in his impact. And honestly, the advanced metrics do lean towards that. But I thought that what we saw from him, taking away the three, he only hit 0.2 threes a game when he was bombing threes in previous seasons. He was able to focus more defensively, 1.4 blocks. His rim contest numbers were pretty solid. He dropped his usage down. And I think this is his role. Backup center. At times, he plays more minutes than Duren because he can be better defensively, but he is undersized. And Isaiah Stewart is not a starting caliber player in the NBA for a team that wants to be good. And that's okay. He is perfectly fine in this role. We would stream him in for blocks. He will not be a draftable player unless something happens weirdly and he's a starter. And if he is a starter, then you do draft him. But where we sit now, he is 24, so he still can improve a little bit from here, but I do think that this is basically Stewart. 6 and 5, 1.4 blocks, 56 and 76, which are pretty good percentages. Getting pretty good percentages with nice blocks and nice rebounds. Really solid combo. And a very strong 14-team league player. 170 or maybe 16 more. 175th for the season, 229th in points leagues, obviously better in categories than in points. But I think we've found the role of Isaiah Stewart. He is not a starter. He is not a 4. He is a backup 5. And that's it. We're going to come back and talk about Ron Holland, Marcus Sasser, and the rest of the Pistons. Today's episode, though, is brought to you by Game Time. The NBA Finals are here. Buzzer beaters, big scores, low scores, tight games, good defense, and someone lifting a trophy. And the electric atmosphere of live sports is something that you can't replicate unless you're there. And that's where Game Time comes in. With the killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees, Game Time is a total game changer. You can jump on to Game Time at any point and look at events. You can get in there, look at the NBA Finals games. I was on there actually looking for tickets to Beyonce not long ago, and they're there. Baseball games, Stanley Cup Finals, it's all there over on Game Time. With the Game Time guarantee, you know that you're getting the best deal. And if you find a better price in the same row and section, they'll credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create the account. Redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets. Lowest price guaranteed. Let's bang out the rest of these Pistons players. We're going to go now to a guy that had an interesting profile coming into the NBA. A winner in college, Marcus Sasser, who was an undersized point guard playing for Houston, who shot the ball well with good defensive numbers and a good defensive reputation. But I didn't really believe that it would translate across to the NBA, and so far it hasn't. Sasser is one of those players, though, where highlight reel bias can get you. Because he will play some games. You'll have one random game where he'll start, or he'll play 20 minutes off the bench and he has hit 7 shots in a row. And he goes, wow, 21 points, 7 of 7 from 3 from Marcus Sasser. Why is he not playing? I remember him. He was a winner in college. And then you watch him try to pass and you go, "Eugh." And you watch him be incredibly small, and then you watch him miss shots in every other game and you go, yeah, I get it. But you won't get it unless you watch all those games. Sasser, I thought, improved from his rookie season to year 2, which is what you want, but also, if you don't do that, that's a huge red flag. His shooting numbers, 38% from 3, really solid. 84% from the line, solid. 2 assists in 14 minutes is not really that great, and he was 348th in category leagues. Darko thought he improved a lot, and I understand that. Perspective Drip thought he didn't, and I'm not really on board with that. But like we said already, he came into the NBA old. He's 25, and it's 2 years in. He's undersized, like 6'1". And I'm not really sure what it is, because I don't think the defensive abilities that he showed in college are necessarily going to pull up and show out in the NBA, although deflection numbers are really strong. The shooting, very strong, but the volume is not always going to be there. And with Ivy and Cade around, he just doesn't really have a role, and then depending on what they do with Schroeder. But of course, many of these guys may not be back. And if Sasser is a player that's an 18, 19 minute a night player, that 348th ranking could jump to 250. I can see 1 to 2 top 200 seasons in the future for Sasser on the back of those steals are good. Those threes are good. The free throws are good. Give me a 4 assist season. I can get it. But I don't see any long-term starter or even starter caliber sixth man coming off the bench the way that Dennis Schroeder would play at times. So while there was improvement here from Sasser, I think the size and the fact that the shooting is great, or it's good, and the defense is good, I don't think it's elite enough to really push it into an area where we need to be caring that much. These two things are true about the next play, which is rugged Ronnie Holland. I thought the draft class was bad. I thought Ron Holland was one of the better players in the draft class. Now, does me having Ron Holland in the top 3 of that draft class suggest that I think that he's a great player? No. Would I have Ron Holland in the top 3 of this draft? No. Top 5? No. Top 7? No. Top 10? Maybe. I also thought that when Holland went at pick 5, it was a large surprise. I would have picked him earlier than that. But I also hated the fact that he went to Detroit. For the simple reason that I don't think that he and Ausar Thompson can really play together. And that was their last 2 number 5 picks. Now, Pistons were in a position where they couldn't really be picky with what they were doing, because they were terrible, and they took who they thought was the best player, and that makes sense. But I cannot see how Ausar Thompson and Ron Holland survive together as starting caliber guys. Now, you can be moved on at any point. Either one could be moved. Who knows? I also didn't expect as a rookie that we'd get 81 games played out of Ron and 16 minutes a night. I didn't even know that he'd be in the rotation. And coming from G League Ignite, we've seen some of those players struggle, especially immediately in the league. And I thought that it was impressive enough to me in year 1 to go, yeah, well, at the worst, you are a rotation player. You're a 3/4. Now, the shooting, horrid. 24% from 3. But here's free throws. 0.6 blocks in 16 minutes, not bad. 2.7 rebounds, 0.4 threes, 6 points, 18 usage. Nothing there should blow you away. I love the fact that his Darko Delta's 98th percentile, because I actually do think he showed way more than I thought he would. And I had him incredibly high in the draft. Again, wouldn't have him that high now. I think there is a chance of Ron Holland returning multiple top 100 fantasy seasons. He's 20. So we got a long way to go here. I don't think it comes until like 24 or 25, age-wise, not year. But deflections were strong. The load was very small offensively because he can't handle that. And I'm not sure he'll ever be a high usage guy, but he will be a 20-plus usage player who rebounds well, passes a little bit, and I think the shot can be worked up slightly. It's going to take time, and it might not be on this squad. But I am still in on Ron Holland as a long-term player, as a long-term prospect, as a long-term fantasy guy. And even though I don't think that it works with Ausar Thompson, even if I think that's true, he just won't stay in Detroit. Somebody will pry him away. He'll demand more money. He'll get traded as a package in something else. And then we'll get an opportunity. We have got a lot of time here with Holland, so you've got to be ready to invest in it long-term in Dynasty. If you don't see the vision, totally okay. I understand that. I saw the vision coming in. It actually did better than I thought as a rookie. So that doubles my enthusiasm. Maybe not doubles, at least 1.2x's my enthusiasm. You could say that I'm a member of Ron Holland FC. Maybe. I don't know. I was impressed, even though the numbers aren't impressive. I'm just going to bring this guy up because who knew that Tolu Smith III was A, a player, B, a two-way guy, and C, played 22 minutes in a game in the NBA this season. If that was you, shout out to you. He had 14 and 8 in that one game that he played, and like 22 fantasy points, but again, it was one game. He's almost 25. He's on a two-way again for next season, old mate Tolu, and we don't need to worry too much about Tolu Smith at any point moving forward. One game. Bobi Klintman. I loved what I saw from him in Summer League. a rim running 6'10", 6'11" power forward / center who maybe can shoot, but can block shots, can finish at the rim, can pass. He cooked in Summer League. And then he got hurt. And we didn't see him play really at all. 8 games. 40 minutes total. He's 22. The rankings are going to tell you absolutely nothing. He shot 40% from 3. I don't care. The volume of that is so small. You can't really judge anything here from Klintman because, again, he just didn't play because he had that calf injury that kept him out for months to begin the season. And then when he came in, like Holland and Thompson and Harris and Fontecchio and all these guys were ahead of him. Klintman has that ability as a tall player to come in and be a really interesting fantasy guy if it all comes together. Now, he did play a sizable season in the G League. And there are some things that are intriguing. Now, 12 points a game, that's not going to get you up, is it? 29% from 3? 43% from the field as a big man? Disgraceful. But what you should look at is he averaged 4 assists a game and 7 rebounds in 31 minutes. We've got to have the shots come. We've got to have some defensive stats because they're non-existent as well. But the passing worked in the G League. And we're still, a little bit of time away from Klintman being a full-time NBA contributor. But the G League stuff showed a couple little things. Last guy I'm going to talk about, another two-way guy who's not a two-way guy anymore, but he's a restricted free agent, Denise Jenkins, a point guard who I thought when Jaden Ivey went down, maybe they'd see what he could do. But he barely played 20 minutes for the season. So I'm going to suggest that maybe he can't do it. I also thought that Jenkins, when I saw him in Summer League, I thought Denise Jenkins in Summer League outplayed Marcus Sasser. Now, there's obviously different motivations for someone who's a first-round pick on a guaranteed rookie contract versus a guy trying to get a two-way. But still shouldn't be an excuse that Sasser couldn't outperform him. He's a 6'3" point guard, Denise Jenkins. He averaged 19 points in the G League, shot 33% from 3 on 7 attempts, with 6.5 assists and 1.4 steals. They're all really solid numbers. The NBA numbers, they mean nothing. Don't worry about them too much. Out of him and Tolu Smith and whoever that other guy, or Ron Harper, the other two-way guy, Jenkins is the guy that I'm more interested in. Now, he's the guy they don't have under contract for another two-way year. I would be trying to bring him back, but also these sort of guards who are mid three-point shooters and didn't get to the line a lot, they can be a dime a dozen. So while I was sort of impressed with what Jenkins brought, I'm not going to heavily index myself in talking about him or thinking about him, but he's a name that if I see him pop up and get to a different team or pop again in Summer League, I won't be surprised. There was enough there with Denise Jenkins where I thought, steals, assists, threes, free throw combo, it works. It's an interesting fantasy profile if it all comes together. It probably won't, but more so than a Tolu Smith or a Ron Harper or a lot of these other G League guards that float around. I've seen enough little flashes from Denise. And that's the end of the Detroit Pistons. Well, they still exist as a franchise and they'll be pushing to get back into the playoffs, of course, but that's the end of my season review. Hit the thumb on the video, subscribe to it. That would be sick. The next team we're going to do is, I think it's Memphis off the top of my head. Let me double check that. It is the Memphis Grizzlies. So we'll talk about their absolute implosion of a season. And you'll never know if I have it unless you subscribe. So maybe you got to do it. That's a terrible way to end the show, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya.